Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Office 365 end user training series. Thanks again for joining us today. We're going to be covering some chat, file sharing, and also a full demonstration of what it actually looks like when you create a meeting and the different features and functionalities that you can use within those meetings. So again, I'm Christy. I'm going to be monitoring questions today. So feel free to use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and ask me questions. I'll be monitoring those and asking Tina and Sean as we go along. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Tina.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for hopping back on our end user training. We have done a lot of, or we've had a lot of conversation about the differences between Zoom and Teams. It keeps cropping up as we're kind of fielding the questions coming in from you guys. And so I wanted to just make sure that we had some clarity around costs for Teams to be a full voice and also conference platform. And so we built this slide for you to help explain that. So essentially, you can do full voice in Teams, and the licensing for that is an additional $20 per user per month. You can also do a conference like what we're doing today with a dial-in number, and every user that wants to host a conference is going to pay an additional $4 per user per month for that license. Hopefully you guys are starting to really understand that while Teams does compete with Zoom in terms of collaboration and in terms of conferencing, Teams really stands out as a collaboration tool for the business and layers in a bunch of additional tools for you guys as you're working remote or even on-prem. We use it all the time, and under normal circumstances, we're here every day. So we're going to hop into some of those tools that help set the two apart. And again, you guys have been really interactive and great about asking questions. So please continue to do that. We love it that these are interactive. It makes it more fun for us and hopefully more engaging for you. Okay, so I wanted to start with just the chat feature. It's something that we haven't really covered. So I'm going to pull in my Teams here, this window, just get this size properly. Okay, so I'm just in basically when I open up Teams, this is what I'm seeing. There's a bunch of Teams over here. And I am going to click on the chat. Ooh. My screen is frozen. Let's see if I can get this working. Sorry, guys.
And while you're doing that, Tina, I was just going to clarify. So most organizations have Office 365 today. And so people ask me all the time, does it come with Teams? Does it not? It comes with Teams, as we talk about, for everything you're seeing here. But then people are saying, I realize Skype became Teams, and Microsoft has hosted voice. So what Tina's talking about is, in addition to your already existing Office 365 SKU, for $20 a license, you can add full voice from Teams. So inbound, outbound calling, local, long distance, all of the above. And so when we compare it to a lot of, whether it be a hosted voice provider or another phone system, not only is it a $20 add-on, but it really, as we'll show you guys, the integration is very unique. So that hopefully answers those questions around licensing.
Okay, thanks, Sean, for clarifying. So I clicked on chat, and what we can see here on the left-hand side is it's just a running waterfall of my most recent chats. So one thing that customers ask all the time about Teams when they're talking about chat is there a way that I can keep track of what has been chatted? And you can really easily. It just saves it for you. It's all here. And then you also have some search features. If you want to search your chats, you can search by topic, or you could search by person to be able to pull up what you're looking for in terms of information. If you are looking at a chat like the one that we just had a couple of minutes ago when we were talking about jumping onto this conference, if we had hosted the meeting in Teams, we would also be able to access any files associated with the meeting. In this case, we didn't stick any up there, as well as any meeting notes, and they do include a whiteboard. So outside of just being an easy collaboration chat tool, it's also keeping track and putting in place, in a logical place, information related to the conversation. So a lot of meetings that I've had have had chat embedded in the meetings, and I can also go back and find files, meeting notes, and if we had a whiteboard. So that's what's happening up along the top here. I can also see who's included in this conversation, and if I want to, I can add more people. So if you're having a meeting and you have your hour, and then maybe the conversation is going to continue, it may not happen in the audio where you guys are on the phone in the meeting, but you could continue the meeting by chat. All of it will be recorded here and accessed here, and you could also add more people if they weren't able to join your meeting for whatever reason. So that's the chat feature. The other thing I want to make sure I show you is how do you start a new chat, right? So right up here, you can just start a chat, and then I could say, well, I want to chat with Christy. She's going to pop up for me. I'm going to click here. It's going to link us back to a previous chat. This is a whole conversation, and I can continue that conversation. I can easily turn this into a video call or an audio call, and then of course I can offer up a screen share if I wanted to screen share. There she is. And we can do gifs and emojis and all the fun stuff that you can do. We can throw in a file. So a lot of functionality just within the chat feature in Teams. The other topic that I wanted to make sure that we covered today is files. So we've gotten a lot of questions, and we've been having a lot of conversations around files and what you can and can't do in Teams. So for the sake of this, I'll open up this PowerPoint slide, which is the slide that I showed you guys at the beginning of this meeting. So it's living here in Teams. And what you're seeing right now is PowerPoint in Teams, and I can actually do some light editing here in Teams with this slide, right? It's not the full feature, it's not the full functionality of PowerPoint on your desktop, full application, but I can certainly do some editing. It's going to automatically save it here in Teams for me. It's going to tell whoever created the document that I've been here and done some edits. So if I want to, I can also open this in what we call the desktop application. Okay, so moving out of Teams just into the web application of PowerPoint. This, guys, is the very light Office 365. You guys get the online versions of the Office applications, in this case, PowerPoint. And again, I can do some editing here. If you notice, there's a little autosave up here. So it's pushing all of the changes that I make in here back to the cloud, back to where the document is sitting, which is essentially on SharePoint. But when I access it through Teams, which is that pretty interface, I will see all of the edits that I made here in PowerPoint, here in the PowerPoint version. And then I can.
Tina, we have a question that came up.
Okay.
So people are asking, it's confusing, I guess, how when I'm working on documents, regardless of where I'm working on them at, whether it's on, looks like desktop or on that web version, how is the saving happening? Is it, that's the question. I don't know if the answer, I mean, I can answer it, but go ahead and kind of go through that.
Yeah. So you control, so right here, if you have your files saved on SharePoint or in the cloud, let's use that term, right? It's sitting on SharePoint. We've moved the file up there. So when I open that file from Teams or even into the desktop application, those files, that autosave is turned on, and any changes that I make automatically are saved and synced back up to that original document. If you guys were here a couple weeks ago, we went through the whole version history, and we can take a look at that again if there are questions around it that show all of the different iterations of each document and give you the ability to compare those changes side by side and revert back to a previous version. But this feature that we're talking about right now is amazing, because if you're anything like me, I used to be the worst at shutting down my computer and not saving changes, and I would lose work all the time. And working online with my documents syncing to the cloud has been a lifesaver. I just don't lose work because everything is automatically saved for me. And then when I get back, I just turn it on, and lo and behold, there are all my changes. So there are a couple really great benefits to this. But yeah, this little autosave guy, if I can turn it off, and it's going to tell me that it saved my edits for this session, but if I leave this off, new edits are not going to automatically save.
Tina, you have 2 more questions, and one of them was original on the licensing. So is Teams an additional $20 for the voice piece for any add-on Microsoft SKU? The answer is if small businesses under 300 users buy a different type of licensing than an enterprise customer does. So people have probably heard of what's called E3 and E5 for more of the enterprise, and there's nonprofit licensing. So those licenses on non-voice start at $20. A small business, 300 users or less, typically has products ranging from $4, $8, or $12.50. $12.50 is kind of the standard, which is called Office 365 Business Premium. If you add the $20 to any of those, the $12.50, you have full voice from Teams. Now, there are other SKUs in the enterprise business called E5 or Microsoft 365 E5, which includes the whole security suite, Windows 10, and Teams voice, that again can combine all that, and you know, it's a price SKU per user per month. So again, the pricing is tough. I would just say to you, think about in the comparison of, say, a hosted voice provider or just a phone system alone, it's $20. And then SharePoint, the other question is SharePoint now OneDrive? And Tina, do you want to answer that?
Sure, I can take that. So I would say no, SharePoint is not OneDrive. They're both cloud file storage systems, and you get access to both with Office 365. I always tell customers when I'm talking about the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint is that OneDrive, think of it as your personal file storage, right? So for me, I save all of my documents into OneDrive. In fact, it's just an automatic save. That's where everything lives. And then once I work through a document, I'm ready to publish it out to I manage the sales team here, so to the rest of the team, I then would put it in Teams, but it's going to sit in SharePoint, which is a document storage that everybody can access that has the rights and permissions within the group in the organization. So to make it like crazy simple, if I have a document living in OneDrive and I want to share it, I initiate that share. I click the document, I say, I'm going to share this document with Christy or with Sean. If I want to share a document that I stick in SharePoint, I just throw it up in SharePoint, let people know it's there. They can go into SharePoint as long as they have the permissions to do that, and then they can access it whenever they want. So they're two different systems and ways to share files. One more personal and the other more organization-wide.
Perfect. Thanks, Tina. So yes, SharePoint is essentially company-wide, where OneDrive's more the personal hard drive.
So I threw up an email here. I really want to make sure we get the idea of documents and how to use them in Teams and in SharePoint, right, or OneDrive. So one of the things that I wanted to show you guys is here I am in my Outlook, and I'm going about attaching a file the way that I normally would. I just click that little paper clip, and it's giving me some options, right? So it's telling me that it's throwing up files like this PowerPoint that we just were editing online. We opened it up locally. It knows I've just been in this document, so there's some intuitive AI happening here. It's saying this, you might want to share this because you were just working on it. And you can see there's a little cloud down there that tells me that the location of that document is in the cloud. It's also throwing up some other things that I've recently been looking at that are shared locally or that are saved locally. And then if I come here, I have the option to browse some areas. So maybe I want to look at OneDrive, and again, it's like my personal file storage. I can go in here and see what documents are here that I may be wanting to share out. We're getting a little latency, sorry about that. Here they are. Versus going directly to this little file guy, which probably a lot of you guys are used to and is typically the way that you would share files, right? So even though I'm in my OneDrive, this looks very much like what a lot of you guys are used to seeing with your files saved on premise or locally on your computer. So it's really easy to navigate. It's just a matter of kind of where they're stored. So again, I'm going to pick this as a cloud document, and I can attach it as a copy so it can come across as that PowerPoint document, or I can share a link. And if I share a link, it just looks like this, and it will allow, I can set permissions here. I'm going to leave the permission saying that anybody who gets it can edit. And then I can say, well, I'm going to send this to Sean, and I'm going to send this to Christy, and they're going to take a look at it before we hop on this call.
Yeah.
You know, we had a good question. Someone asked why store some files in Teams and not in SharePoint. So maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Ooh, I'll take that one.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Okay.
It's so I always tell companies that SharePoint, although we do a lot of it, it's a complex way to do file management. Although, you know, companies have done it. Into the second part of the question was, is SharePoint behind Teams? The answer is Teams lives on SharePoint. So what we're finding is that as companies migrate to what we call modern SharePoint, modern SharePoint, which is in the cloud with Microsoft, they're layering Teams on top of it. So then the teams that are creating groups, those files are actually shared into SharePoint. We're with the integration of the phone piece, the video piece, all of the above right into it. People are starting with Teams, knowing the documents are going into SharePoint, and that's what they like doing. But we still have a lot of customers in older versions of SharePoint just doing all their uploading and file sharing through SharePoint itself. So it's really up to you. But I will just say the natural progression for both Microsoft and for the business is to move everything into the Teams hub so people can do, you know, documents sharing and collaboration through that.
I would just add on, I think that was a great response. And I would just add on that for me, when I'm thinking about sharing information out, I generally don't want to stick it somewhere and have it be forgotten. Like, I want to call attention to the information. Maybe it's something that I just created that I'm, you know, want everybody to know about, or, you know, worked in collaboration with Christy, who does marketing here, on an offer we want to make sure that the team is aware of. And an easy way to do it, instead of emailing it to them, you know, where it might get lost in their inbox. I'm sure you guys probably struggle with keeping up with mail if you're anything like I am. But here in Teams, I can share the document, and then I can mention either a person or a whole group. In this case, you can see Christy mentioned a whole group, and it's in purple, it's hyperlinked, and it will notify them immediately that there has been something that we're asking them to take a look at. So I love that ability in Teams to like have really relevant information in this waterfall type place where I can say, hey, Sean, I just finished this. Please take a look at it. And it's easy for him to find. I've mentioned him. He goes right there. The document's waiting. I just think it's easy.
Yeah, I think I read a stat recently too that said companies that switch to Teams, like individually, you'll get like less than 4,000 emails a year because of just the file sharing and stuff through Teams rather than email. So it would be nice to have less than that many emails.
4,000 less emails a year. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last part of what we wanted to do today was just hop into a meeting in Teams, because we have had a lot of questions about hosting meetings in Teams. And so want to make sure that you guys can see that in action. So I'm going to go back really quick because sometimes I move too fast. I went to my calendar. I don't have this meeting scheduled. So I'm just going to click a Meet Now button and open up a Teams meeting. So I've just opened this meeting. I'm the only one here. And then what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to invite Sean and I'm going to invite Christy. And I'm going to ask them really quickly to join. Sean's hopped in. Our microphones are muted because we'll get some crazy feedback because we're on a different audio. And Christy also joined. So you can see how easy it is to have your video. She just, if you guys caught that, demonstrated how you can blur out your background, right? So Christy's at home today, and she maybe doesn't want you guys to see the pictures behind her on the wall. I think it was some sports thing, if I know Christy. And so she's blurred that out, right? So maybe, you know, sometimes I'm home and my husband's messy closet is behind me, and oh, there we go, baseball and ducks. And I don't want people to see that. So I'll like blur that out because his closet's in my office. It's a long story. But so there's features to do that. We can also, when I move the mouse, I pull up this bar, there's meeting minutes being tracked. Here's my ability to share my desktop, so I can offer a screen share. There's some other options here that I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of. So device settings, you can kind of control your audio inputs. Meeting notes. So remember we were talking about that chat feature. You know, if we wanted to, we could take notes in this meeting. It's going to stay right here, so I'll always be able to access it. And then it's a really easy way for everybody, anybody who's in the meeting to collaborate in the meeting and then also take those notes, and it lives here in Teams. So that's super great.
Tina, can you guys hear me?
I hear you.
I don't want to throw you guys off here, but on the one of the other cool things, as you know, different leaders and myself, every week, almost every other day, I'm putting videos together that are pre-recorded for the organization, just giving them updates when I work from home. And so the little 3 doodads that you see in the middle there, the ellipses, I think we call them, you can actually immediately join your own meeting. You don't have to set a calendar invite, hit the start recording button, and you record something about you that's going on or something about the business. It actually uploads automatically into Microsoft video recording product Stream,
yeah.
And it's ready to be then republished through Teams if you want to send out anything that's pre-recorded. It's really cool. A lot of our executives and organizations are using it today.
Yeah,
so
to add to that,
sorry, Christy.
Integrates right into Teams. So you could even have a channel at the top that is just playing the different streams.
So here's where you would do that. You would just click start recording and it would record this meeting for you. And then, like Sean said, you'd have this video communication that you could release to your organization. Super easy. Or another use case for that would be if you had a large group of people that were joining a meeting and maybe 1 or 2 people couldn't make the meeting, you could record the meeting and then publish that recording, and they could easily get caught up without having somebody from the meeting have to sit with them for an hour and share with them all the information that was already digested from the group. So I think that's another really great and relevant use case. I mentioned, like, I have some of my account executives or sales reps that will record their calls, and then if, you know, they want me to take a listen and we can have some coaching conversations, and or, you know, if I need to get up to speed because I'm going to step into a meeting to help, I can listen to and see what happened in the past, and so that way I'm all up to speed. So lots of great use cases for that. And then super easy, again, to see the participants, and I can bring somebody in right now if I wanted to, and just by typing their name in here.
Tina, there was 3 questions. One is the file saving question again. Like, if we were to take and open up any document in Teams, how is that type of file saving happening? And I guess I'll answer it in short by saying this: when a file is shared, whether it's on the Teams app and you see it right inside of your Teams, say UI, unified interface, or it's downloaded to the Office web apps, so Excel Online, or it's downloaded to the desktop, it's automatically saving for you. And it's then re-uploading itself to the cloud. And then the preceding question to that becomes, what about version history? And we showed it last week, but you can create version history and see all the edits that happened from previous edits in that document as far back as you want to go. There was another question, Tina. So if somebody is on the Teams bridge doing a call like this, and then they want to be able to switch it over to their cell phone automatically so it continues the Teams bridge, I don't think Microsoft has that capability yet. What they do allow you to do is forward it to your cell phone and keep the call going, but it's going to come through and call you on your cell phone, and you'll see a ring come from the Teams app come in, but you can't automatically switch over at this point.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is, because I was talking to Josh about this recently, I think you just have to click join from your phone, and I think it actually picks up that you've done that, and it'll drop on the laptop.
I've done that before. So if I were in a Teams meeting, which we run a lot of meetings internally on Teams, I would then, if I needed to leave, just open up the app, join the meeting. It will disconnect me on the computer, and then it's really seamless to be on my phone and on my way.
Yep. So 3 quick questions that came up. How do you invite an outside party to the meeting? That's done when you actually create a new Teams meeting. You can then send them an email and they'll get an invite, and then you, the hoster of the meeting, will have to admit them. We also had asked the question a couple weeks ago, what if I want to have a dial-in audio conference bridge? That was that license that Tina mentioned for $4 per user per month. So Sean Farrell, could add a license for $4 and host an audio and video bridge if people didn't want to use the Team app to call in. I think this question, Tina, comes, why is there such a video have such delay behind Zoom? Teams video have such a delay behind Zoom. And I don't know if that's related to this call or if they're just asking the question around.
I think it's because we have so many videos open right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's typically not like this. When we had our meeting this morning, for 2 hours we were on, and it was normal.
Yeah, it's hard.
We're consuming a lot of video with both both platforms open, probably.
Yeah.
I wanted to also say, last week I was actually troubleshooting with one of my clients, and they were trying to configure Teams they have it in their organization. They wanted to be able to invite outside people, and it was really easy for me to actually just type in the name, and he's a guest, and he's not in our organization, but he's in Teams, and I could just add him really easily and start chatting him and working with him in Teams. So because our permissions are configured to allow us to collaborate with outside people, it's all about how you set it up and the configurations, but you can have people outside of your organization join a meeting. I could have just invited him to the meeting if I wanted to.
Yeah. A big question, Tina, that came up, and it's a really big question around security that keeps coming up. What security features are integrated with Teams? So let me take this really quick and try to answer the best I can. So first off, from a conferencing perspective, there's a few tools on the market right now that everybody seems to have went out and adopted, from Zoom to, Cisco has products, Microsoft has Teams for conferencing. But what we're trying to show is that organizations, as they've adopted these conference tools, they're then adopting kind of the document management platform, whether it's, Teams or, SharePoint sitting behind that. And, in today's world, there is no other comparable platform. There is Slack, if people are familiar with that, which is kind of a Teams-esque platform where you have your chat function and your document management, but it doesn't necessarily have the voice. And I don't know if the recent news was published, but, Slack now integrates with Teams, as does Zoom. But they are 2 separate tools. Now, within the Microsoft ecosystem for Teams, there is a whole nother product set called EMS, Enterprise Management and Security. And that is the tool that Tina had alluded to, I think it was last week, and we did a webinar last Thursday around everything you could imagine, from advanced threat protection, so kind of what happens from the outside coming into our, quote unquote kingdom or company, and then inside the organization, things like, how do I deal with rights management around that Word doc that we're sharing from Teams, making sure that if I forward it to somebody outside the organization, they can't then re-forward it to somebody else. Those tools can be integrated and built right into Teams. But you also have governance in Teams, which Tina showed last time, which talk about, the ability to read, write documents, just to view them or be able to edit with somebody else or to give certain permissions to certain people. But there is security policies that you have to build around this stuff, just like any organization, to make this all work. So again, there's a third-party product from Microsoft called EMS, if you want to look that one up. But it is something that can be added onto your licensing SKU.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note too is just some of the meeting options that you have. Like, for example, you can approve who comes in or not. So you essentially can create a lobby that people have to wait in before you let them into your calls, so not anyone can just hack in. If you go ahead and record a meeting within Teams, it's going to alert people that you're being recorded. So make sure there's consent. So from a both privacy and security, multi-factor authentication is built in, advanced threat protection through the file sharing and all that stuff. Like, security is really Microsoft's like bread and like it's baked into every single product that they have. And so they're thinking about both security and compliance, and there's a lot that we could talk about on that topic. So.
All right, that is what we had on the agenda for today. It looks like we're right on time, unless Christy or Sean, you guys have anything else you'd like to add. That covers our demo and end user training. I will say again to you guys out there that are putting up with us week after week, we appreciate it. And if you have any specific topics that you would like us to dive deeper into, you can shoot us a quick email and just let us know. We're happy to take those suggestions and tailor this training to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We, as usual, we will send out the recording sometime tomorrow, so that if you need to refer back to something or share it out with colleagues, feel free to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.